You wake up. Your palms are already sweaty. Your phone is in your hand. Before your eyes even open, 5 notifications, 3 likes, 2 comments. You like 20 other people's lives. A wedding, coffee, a sunset, a smile, success. You scroll. You swipe. You react. But you don't say a word out loud. All day long, it's like this. You're connected. You're trending. You're in the flow. But by evening, there's silence. A ringing in your ears. An emptiness in your chest. No one asked, "How are you?" No one heard your voice. Just notifications, like an echo in an empty room. You are not broken. You are not strange. You are not alone. 72% of American adults feel the same way. Every day, you're in a crowd, but inside, it's a desert. 300 friends, 7 platforms, notifications every 3 minutes, and yet, loneliness, not as an exception but as the norm. Here's the paradox. The more connected you are, the more deeply isolated you become. A like isn't a hug. A comment isn't a conversation. A subscription isn't care. You're confusing the signals because the system is designed that way. Algorithms aren't your friends. They capture your attention. They sell your vulnerability. They replace intimacy with imitation. Imagine, you're sitting at a table with 10 people. Everyone is looking at screens. No one is looking into anyone's eyes. No one hears the tremor in your voice. And then everyone gets up and leaves without knowing you're struggling. This is the new isolation. Not in a bunker, but in a crowded cafe. In an overflowing Instagram feed. In a group chat where everyone types, "ha ha." But no one says, "I'm here for you." Do you feel it? That cold knot in your stomach when you close the app and it's just you and your shadow? That's not you. That's the architecture of loneliness, designed not for connection, but for clicks. But know this, your longing isn't a weakness. It's a signal, like pain in your arm from a broken bone. The system is broken, and you are whole. And one day, you'll say aloud, "I'm not okay." Not in a story, not live, but to a person, face to face. And you'll hear, in return, "I'm here." Real, unfiltered, not put off until later. It's possible. But first, stop believing that likes can keep you warm. Jessica from Austin wakes up at 7 in the morning. Her fingers are already scrolling through her feed before her eyes even open. 4 hours a day, at least, are spent scrolling. She knows what her friends had for breakfast: avocado toast, oat latte, scrambled eggs with arugula. She knows where they were on Saturday, what sneakers they bought, what their new couch looks like. But it's been 8 days without a single real conversation. Not at work, not on the phone, not over a cup of tea. Just emojis, stories, reposts. Inside, there's silence. Not the kind that heals, but the kind that hums like a live wire. She doesn't miss events. She misses a voice. The way someone says, "Tell me about it," and listens, without waiting for their turn to type. Do you feel it? When you put down your phone and the silence in the room amplifies your loneliness? Digital communication is like eating fast food instead of dinner with your grandmother. Quick, convenient, empty. In the past, letters were written like confessions, with thought, with trembling hands, with hope for a reply. Then came messengers, and words became cheap, like confetti. And now, feeds. You're not looking for people. You're flipping through them like a catalog. The algorithm feeds you other people's smiles while you starve for warmth. You used to call because you missed someone. Now you scroll because you're empty. And instead of conversation, a reaction; instead of dialogue, an endless monologue of a machine. Imagine that's you. Your fingers are tired. Your eyes are dry. Your heart feels like it's wrapped in cotton. You're aware of everything, but you feel nothing. Here's a shocking truth. Those who spend more than 2 hours a day on social media are 3 times more likely to feel cut off from the world. Not because they are alone, but because their brain confuses the imitation of connection with real intimacy. A like doesn't warm your skin. A comment doesn't replace a hug. And a story isn't the place to say, "I'm not okay." Your brain seeks oxytocin, the trust hormone, produced when someone looks into your eyes and says, "I hear you." But it gets dopamine from a notification. It's not food, it's a substitute for food. And the more you consume it, the hungrier you become. But why is it like this for everyone? Because it's not a mistake, it's architecture. The system doesn't want you to talk. It wants you to watch. The longer you're in the feed, the more it knows. The more it knows, the more precisely it hooks you. It builds a bubble where everyone is happy, successful, connected. And you sink deeper into silence. You're connected, but outside of a real dialogue. Look at your hands. How many times an hour have they reached for a screen, and not once for a living person? That's where isolation begins. Not in the absence of people, but in the refusal to converse. You'll open your feed, and everything around you confirms you're right. Your friends hate the same things you do. The news shouts what you believe. Memes laugh at those you don't understand. At first, it's comforting, like a blanket in a cold room. But then you step outside and encounter a world where no one speaks your language, where people argue, get angry, doubt, and you fall silent. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you've forgotten how to listen. You don't leave, you just stop being a part of it. All that remains is the feed, your perfect, silent world. And in reality, you're alone. This isn't an accident. This is algorithmic isolation. Platforms don't just show you what you like. They cut out everything that causes friction, everything that requires effort, everything that makes you think differently. They build a bubble of approval, but without dialogue. And connection isn't born in agreement. It arises in the crack between I and you, in the moment when you don't understand and still listen. But algorithms have removed that crack, and with it, the possibility of truly being heard. You no longer learn to see another's pain. You only see a reflection of yourself. And the longer you look, the deeper you sink into loneliness. It all started in 2006. Facebook launched the news feed, a feed that decided what you should see without asking, without choice. It was a turning point, a shift from social search to passive observation. You stopped choosing who to talk to. You simply started watching, consuming, waiting, and that's when we became spectators. And a spectator isn't a participant. A spectator is alone. The news feed didn't connect us. It trapped each of us in a perfectly curated cage where everyone is right and everyone is lonely. You think 300 friends is a network. But what if they are 300 shadows, 300 profiles behind which no one stands? You like a photo, but you don't know if the person cried before the selfie. You repost wisdom, but you don't ask, "How are you?" And the more contacts you have, the stronger the loneliness in a crowd. Psychotherapists call this invisibility in plain sight. You're everywhere, but you're nowhere. You're not hiding. You're simply not seen. Because connection is measured not by quantity, but by quality. And quality requires risk. It requires a word spoken aloud. It requires eye contact. Look at your screen. How many times have you liked something and not once asked, "Are you okay?" That's where true isolation begins. Not in an empty room, but in an overflowing feed where everyone is silently alone in their own way. Jessica scrolls through her feed late at night. The screen's light is the only one in the room. In the photos, friends in warm light, glasses in hand, laughter, hugs, life. She sits in silence. The clock ticks. No one called. No one texted. She thinks, why does everyone else have an evening and I only have fingers scrolling in the dark? She's not angry. She feels like glass, transparent, invisible. She taps like under every post, as if knocking, I'm here. But a like isn't a door. It's a wall. And behind it, silence. Do you feel it? When your screen is full of people, but in the room there's only your breath, 300 friends, and not a single confidant. You're confusing a contact list with real connection. But intimacy isn't a number. It grows in the pauses between words, in how someone notices you've gone quiet, in the question, are you really okay? Without a smiley face, without a reason. But on social media, it's the opposite. You only show what can be liked. You hide your fatigue behind a golden hour filter. You stay silent about fear because it doesn't fit into a story. And the more you edit yourself, the more you lose yourself. Studies from the University of Pennsylvania clearly state, for mental well-being, a person needs 3 to 5 people with whom they can say, I'm not okay, and not fear judgment. Not 300 who will heart your selfie, but 3 who will show up even if you don't look inspiring. Here's the paradox. People with hundreds of friends feel loneliness more often than those with 10 real names in their phone. Why? Because the digital self is a mask, and a mask is exhausting. You try to be funny, successful, calm for everyone. And in the end, you're left alone with an empty shell. Because connection isn't about how many people see you. It's about who sees you. Truly, without a filter. With shadows under your eyes. With a tremor in your voice. And stays, not for the content, but for you. What if they only love me for who I'm not? Does that feeling resonate with you? When you edit photos, choose words, craft a narrative, hoping, if I'm perfect, they won't abandon me. But the price of this illusion is pain, the pain of comparison, the pain of thinking, everyone else has a life, and I just have a screen. And this pain isn't your fault, it's engineered. Algorithms feed you others' happiness, while you starve for a simple, hi, how are you? Look at your hands. How many times have they sent the perfect message, and not once typed, I'm lonely? That's where true isolation begins. Not in the absence of people, but in the fear of showing that you are human, not a character. He spends 20 minutes editing a photo, removes the shadows under his eyes, brightens his smile, adds a filter so his skin glows like an advertisement on a bus, publishes it, immediately likes, comments, you look great. But an hour later he feels worse than before publishing, because he knows it's not him. It's an image, and the more he's praised for the image, the further he drifts from himself. He doesn't feel joy. He feels tired of pretending. And in the silence after publishing, the thought catches up to him. What if they only love me for who I'm not? In the room, only the flickering screen. No one hears this question, because there's no room for doubt in the feed, only for smiles. Do you feel it? When you edit a photo as if you're auditioning for a role, the role of yourself? Comparison is a form of self-destruction disguised as inspiration.
Social media has turned our lives into a play where everyone is both actor and audience. We look at others' successes and think, why not me? But we don't see backstage, the fatigue, the doubts, the pain. We only see the final shot. And this imbalance destroys self-esteem because you're comparing your inner reality to someone else's outer facade. Studies show the more time you spend on social media, the higher the likelihood of feeling inadequate. Not because you're worse, but because you're comparing an apple to a poster of an apple and wondering why yours doesn't shine as brightly. Imagine that's you. Your fingers are tired from editing, and your eyes from other people's happiness, presented as the norm. 68% of users use Instagram stories not to share moments, but to showcase an ideal life, according to Meta's internal data. And 54% of those who watch them feel worse after viewing. This isn't just statistics. It's a cycle. You publish a facade. Others feel worse. They publish their facade. And you feel worse. And so it goes. Platforms call this inspiration. But in reality, it's emotional inflation, where genuine feelings are devalued and fake ones are prized. And in this cycle, not only self-esteem suffers, but also the ability to be sincere, even with oneself. Now look at your hands. How many times have they wiped away fatigue from your face and not once sent, "I'm not okay"? And in this cycle, we lose not only self-esteem, but something even more precious, intimacy. Because when the personal becomes public, it stops being real. We no longer share, we display. We no longer speak, we broadcast. And true connection is born in silence, in vulnerability, in what remains between two people, and doesn't make it into the feed. But what happens when even this silence disappears? When even the personal becomes content? When even pain must be aesthetic? Then the last refuge from loneliness disappears. A space where you can be yourself without an audience. Remember, when was the last time you said, "I'm not okay"? Not for a reaction, but for a hand that would hold yours. They sit at the same table. Candles flicker. Glasses cast a warm glow. Jazz softly plays from the speaker. But the camera is already on a tripod. Jamie captures the shot, smiles, glasses, the perfect angle. The post is live in a minute. Hashtags, perfect evening, couple goals. Likes, 20, 40, 70. But at the table, silence. Not the kind that warms, but the kind that presses down. No one asks, "You look tired?" No one places a hand on another's. They haven't had dinner for 2 years. They've been filming dinner. And the more flawless the story, the emptier the room after the screen turns off. Do you feel it? When everything looks like love, but inside it's cold? When the personal became public, it stopped being real? This isn't poetry. It's a law. Intimacy grows only in the shadows, where there are no spectators. And social media has turned every cup of tea, every glance, every tear into content material. You don't share, you display, you don't speak, you broadcast, and the brain confuses audience reaction with real connection. 68% of users hide their true feelings online, not out of malice, but because they're afraid. What if it doesn't get likes? But true intimacy doesn't require approval. It requires risk. It requires the word "I'm scared," without a filter, without a hashtag, without an audience. And this is where it gets interesting. In 2016, Instagram launched Stories. It seemed like just a new format. But in reality, the beginning of the end of personal space. Breakfast, a walk, evening fatigue, everything became currency. The more you show, the realer you seem. But the paradox is, the more you post,
the less there is left to say to a living person. Why call a friend if you've already posted in your story? Tough day? You got hearts? But you didn't get, "I'm here for you." And 54% of those who watch such stories feel worse. They don't envy. They think, "My life isn't content." Remember, when was the last time you said, "I'm not okay"? Not for the screen, but for a person? Imagine that's you. Your fingers are tired from editing, and your eyes from other people's perfect dinners, and your heart from the fact that even pain must now be aesthetic. When the personal became public, it ceased to be a refuge. And loneliness came not into an empty room, but into an overflowing broadcast where everyone talks, but no one listens. He's 22 years old. He just got a promotion. Colleagues invite him to a bar. He agrees, but whispers, "No calls after, though." Because a call for him is like jumping into icy water. His heart sinks. His palms get clammy. A ringing in his ears, as if glass shattered in his head. He prefers to spend an hour writing a message than 10 seconds speaking aloud. In college, he sat silently while others debated. On dates, he looked at the floor because he didn't know how to start. Without a screen, without a script, without an edit button. He has 427 friends, 18 Discord chats, but not one of them has heard his voice in over a year. And a voice isn't just a sound. It's the vibration of presence. And its absence the body feels as
Chronic pain, a dull, deaf ache in the chest. Do you feel it? When you want to say something important, and your fingers instinctively reach for the keyboard, not the phone? Online communication gives the illusion of control. You can think, delete, rewrite, hide the tremor. But live communication is chaos, pauses, awkwardness, a gaze you don't know where to put. It's in this chaos that the brain learns to feel another. Without it, empathy atrophies. Studies from the University of Pennsylvania show teenagers who spend more than 5 hours a day on social media are twice as less likely to react to another's pain in real life. Their brain simply hasn't been trained to read facial expressions, tone, the tremor in a voice, those signals by which we understand this person is hurting. And by 2023, 72% of young Americans admitted they fear unplanned face-to-face conversations. Not shy, afraid. Imagine that's you. Your phone rings, and your stomach knots up. You're not strange. You've just been deprived of the training to be human among people. Then came the pandemic. In 2020, the world shut down, and everyone rushed to Zoom, to video chats, to memes, like life rafts. But Pew Research Center surveys showed a shocking truth. Loneliness didn't decrease, it deepened. Because a screen doesn't warm you. A smile through a camera isn't a smile. Even the longest video call doesn't activate the brain cells that mirror others' feelings. It doesn't produce oxytocin, the hormone that's only generated when you're physically present. The pandemic exposed the truth. Digital connection is an imitation. And imitation doesn't quench hunger. Remember, when was the last time your voice trembled and someone didn't look away? And this is where it gets most alarming. It's not just a habit. It works for a system that profits from your fear of being forgotten, from your desire to be heard, from your loneliness. Because loneliness equals app time equals money. And behind the scenes? Engineers aren't designing apps, they're designing addictions, using the same principles as laboratories. But now, instead of rats pressing a lever, it's you, with fingers scrolling in the dark, and a heart that is still searching for, I'm here, in a windowless office, 3 in the morning. Only one monitor glows in the dark. On the screen, graphs, retention time, opening frequency, reaction to notifications. Engineers are testing a phrase for a push notification. Option A, you were mentioned. Option B, you missed something important. They know option B activates the amygdala, triggers cortisol. Anxiety is the best hook. They don't think about how it will constrict your chest at 3 in the morning. They don't care if you're sleeping. Their job is for you to open the app. Again and again, especially when you're alone. Because loneliness is the ideal state for engagement. Meta's internal data, night users are 3.5 times more likely to like, repost, buy. They don't choose. They react. Like rats to a lever. Do you feel it? How your fingers instinctively reach for the screen even when your eyes are heavy with sleep. The attention economy is simple. Your loneliness, your time, your data, their profit. $140 billion a year. Not for content. Not for connection. For your vulnerability. FOMO isn't a feeling, it's an algorithm. A like isn't support. It's a dopamine trigger based on a variable reinforcement schedule. You return because you hope for warmth, and you get another cycle of emptiness. And the deeper the emptiness, the stronger the urge to return. This isn't a mistake. It's a business model. Imagine that's you. Your phone vibrates in the dark. Your heart beats faster. And on the screen, only ads, push notifications, endless scrolling, autoplay. These aren't conveniences. These are tools of addiction. They were designed by former casino employees. Those who know the best moment to hook someone is when they lose control. And loneliness is a moment of loss. Platforms don't observe you. They control you. Your I'm here is their raw material. Your pain is their bait. As a former Facebook manager said, "We built attention traps, and the best bait is pain." Does that feeling resonate with you? When after scrolling all that's left is a heaviness in your stomach, and the feeling that you've been used? Here's the truth, you are not broken. You were broken. Deliberately. Systematically. For profit. But now you see behind the curtain. And that's the first weapon. Because if the problem isn't with you, but with the architecture, you can leave. Not tomorrow. Not after another story. Right now. The choice is yours. Continue to feed the machine with your pain. Or find a person who will ask, "How are you?" and wait for an answer. Jessica turns off her notifications. Not all, not forever. Just for one evening. The phone is silent, and for the first time in months, she hears her own heart beating. Not a vibration, not a ping, her heart. Softly, steadily, alive. She looks out the window. Outside it's raining, drops trickle down like tears she hadn't cried because it's not for a story. But now, she can. She picks up her phone, not for the feed, not for likes, but to call. She taps the name of a friend she hasn't spoken to since the friend commented "all good" on a vacation photo. The call, 2 seconds, and a voice. "Where have you been?" Jessica smiles. Not for the camera, not for a hashtag. Just smiles, with her eyes, her lips, a tremor in her throat, and says, "I'm not okay." Not beautifully, not inspiringly, just humanly. Do you feel it? How something in your chest thaws when you're heard, not as content, but as a person? Everything we've seen before this isn't chaos. It's a system. Algorithms isolate. Stories turn pain into a spectacle. Scrolling replaces conversation. And anxiety is fuel for notifications. It all works for one thing, to keep you in the feed. Not in life. In the feed. Because real connection doesn't scale. It can't be sold for $140 billion. It can't be packaged into a push notification. It requires a pause. It requires eye contact. It requires the risk of saying, "I'm not okay," and not knowing what the response will be. But it can be brought back. Even 15 minutes a day, without a screen, without a script, reduces anxiety by 31% in 3 weeks. Not because you fixed yourself, but because your brain remembered you are not alone. Imagine that's you. Your finger hovers over a name. You don't know what to say, but you call. And in response, not an emoji, but silence. And then, "I'm listening." Loneliness isn't from a lack of people. It grows where there's no sincerity. You can be in a chat with 50 people and feel lost, or talk to one, and realize you're home. A like doesn't warm you. A story doesn't listen. And 300 friends don't replace one question, "Are you really okay?" Without a reason, without a filter. And here's the hope. 64% of Americans who consciously reduced their time on social media reported their relationships became deeper. Not louder, not brighter, but deeper. Like tea brewed twice. Now, a question for you. Do you feel lonely more often online or offline? But before you answer, remember, when was the last time you spoke to someone without thinking about how it would look? And heard not just the words, but the tremor before them? You are not broken. The system is, and you can leave. Not tomorrow. Not after another scroll. Right now. Put down your phone. And say to someone aloud, "I'm here." Without a hashtag. Without an audience. Just you.